Good evening, everyone. I will call our agenda review meeting to order. This is on November 30th, 2020. We are meeting electronically under the authorization of Governor Lee's executive order. Pete, you may have to help me. Is it 63 or 68? One or the other of those executive orders covers us meeting electronically. In order to meet all those requirements, we need to call the roll of the commissioners who are in attendance tonight. Pete, could you go ahead and call our roll?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Hunter.
I'm here.
Commissioner Calhoun.
Here.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Here.
Commissioner Fowler.
Here.
Mayor Brock.
Here.
All present and accounted for.
All present and accounted for. Pete, we have quite a few here who are on the call that are here for different elements we'll be talking about tonight. But I thought since the agenda is pretty short, why don't we just real quickly see if there's anything that any of the commissioners would like any further explanation on. And then we will get to our special items that are on our agenda. So commissioners, I'll open it up. Is there anything on the agenda that you would need additional information on before Thursday night?
Well, Mayor, I sent my question in about the building codes issue, which is item 6.1. And just a couple of questions. Well, I'd love to see, and maybe that y'all have got this ready, but some kind of document that sort of simply breaks down the codes based on area or city location, so that we're pretty sure we know what we're voting for as far as our codes versus the ones in the surrounding area. And maybe I've missed it, but it's pretty complicated just going through it and trying to figure that out. If we had something that just had a roadmap to say, when we vote for this, we're different than Kingsport or Bristol or Carter County. And then the other thing about the building codes was just some conversation on how the regional builders were involved in the adoption of the codes or the recommendations.
Yes, sir. And I think Dave has got all that covered in his presentation, and we have probably 4 different people on the call this evening that we'll get into some more detail about their involvement and their likes and dislikes of what's being proposed. I know we've got home builders, some builders, AGCs on, and you probably got a couple of builders on. So you'll have an opportunity to hear from residential people, commercial people. Hopefully that will answer your questions well.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Since we'll be getting in depth on that, let's just go on. Is there anything else on the agenda that is to address fairly quickly, and then we can get on to the special presentations? Are we good? There was one question before we actually started the meeting, and since Sunny was on here, I asked her this, is how the $350 was set, the fee was set for the delivery, the beer delivery, and she went into that explanation. So for the commissioners who may have not been on the call yet, Sunny, would you just real briefly kind of go through how the $350 was set?
Sure. Whenever we were establishing and researching, looking into how we could do a beer delivery service for the businesses that kind of fall in the gaps between the state's statute that allows for a beer delivery license, we looked at what the state has set up for those businesses that do qualify. And this, sorry, okay, sorry. The state statute, it's under chapter 57, title, I think 57.7. It lays out the license fees that the state requires for those businesses that are going to qualify for their delivery license. I apologize.
No worries. Remote workers. I mean, this is part of it.
If you can give me just 1 second. The state's license is set at $350 for an initial application fee, and then there's a year, or I think it's $300 for an initial application fee. That's a non-refundable fee that's paid for the application. Once the application is processed, there's an additional $150 fee that's due annually to renew that license, well, for the initial issuance of the license, then the renewals. So we looked at the value of our beer licenses, then locally what those fees, what we felt would be a fair rate for those, and arrived at $350. We do not charge an application fee. You have an initial fee, but that is with the processing for your application. So there's not an additional $150 that's due or $200 that's due. So it's really about year 4 whenever we hit the equal part to the state's license. But the businesses that can apply for our beer license, delivery, or delivery license are different than the ones from the state. The ones that we can apply this to aren't eligible for the state's license.
All right, thank you. Any follow-up questions to Sunny? Okay, thank you, Sunny. And don't worry about that. Like I said, this remote working, we have to get used to it, I guess. Any other thing on the agenda? Okay, Pete, I'll turn it over to you. I don't know what order you want to do things in, but we'll let it be your call.
Okay, since we have a number of people with us tonight to talk about building codes, I'd like to ask Dave McClellan if he'll go ahead and make his presentation. He's got a little presentation to make, and then he can invite those that are joining us this evening to offer their comments and suggestions. So Dave, if you'd take it, please, sir.
Yes, good evening. Thanks everyone for being here, or who are especially here for the building code segment. I'm actually very grateful for Sunny's few moments there, because I was digging in virtually into my desktop to pull out the presentation to share my screen here. You might have to bear with me. I've actually never shared a screen. I don't think it's going to be that complicated. I'm hoping it's not that complicated, but let me get there 1 second here. Share screen. Okay, let me make this larger than this. Well,
Dave, go ahead and run it as your slideshow.
okay. I never use PowerPoint.
I'm sorry, hit the F5 button.
There you go. There you go. That looks much better. Okay. So basically what I did here was I broke down, I tried to make this as simple as possible. I took a tremendous amount of information out. A lot of the text here, I would suggest you focus on the bars and the small graph to the side. Let me just kind of flip through here to let you all know what to anticipate and what I'm trying to show as an overall. So we have the state fire marshal's adoption of building codes. We have Johnson City's. I compared that between Johnson City and the state. I went to Johnson City and Washington County specifically, talked about the Tri-Cities all together, and then we did it regionally. And I'll tell you what all this information means, and I'll back up back to the beginning, but I wanted to give you a precursor to exactly what it was you were looking at there. So basically what this shows is several key factors. It shows the year and the code focus. the year of the addition, and the code focus. Code focus would be residential, commercial, energy, electrical, trade, or accessibility. Now, some of these have multiple trades or multiple codes involved. For example, commercial encompasses both the IBC, which is the building code, commercial building code, and the IFC, which is the fire code, along with the existing building code. So there's 3 different codes jammed into that commercial band right there. Trade also jams in several, includes mechanical, plumbing, and fuel gas. All the other ones are pretty straightforward, residential, and there is one thing to keep in mind. So the counties that I show later on, and the state has to keep this in mind whenever they adopt codes, counties use the residential code only, which includes everything. So they can use one book where they only enforce residential code. They don't enforce the commercial code or the NEC electrical. That's all done by the state. They enforce only the residential code, which has an electrical chapter, which has an accessibility chapter, and which has a energy conservation chapter. Now, jurisdictions that are not county-based pull those out into individual code books, and then their graphs. Let me give you an example. So this shows everything that the state does. And if I go down to here, you see Washington County, they only have residential. And that's all they have adopted because that's all they inspect. The electrical and the commercial facilities in the county are all done by the state. So I'm just giving you all the baseline for how the adoptions work. And please forgive me if you all are knowledgeable of this. For those of you that aren't, I just want to make sure everybody understands. Okay, so at the state level, they currently have the a few more bits of information. So amendments, the numbers at the bottom of these columns show the number of amendments they have to each one of those codes that are adopted. And for example, residential plus Q shows you the appendices or the appendix. It's required that whenever you adopt a code in Tennessee that you specifically adopt the appendix or appendices to observe them. So even though there might be 15 different appendices, you have to specifically adopt them in order to observe them, or they're not applicable to the building. So at the state level, residentially, they have the 18 residential code and Appendix Q. Appendix Q is actually tiny homes, which we intend to also adopt. There's been lots of interest in tiny homes, and this gives many variables that aren't available anywhere else. Tiny homes allow, for example, stairs to be tighter. You can imagine the variances that you have to have in order to get things into a smaller footprint. And 8 different amendments. Now, those amendments that they have range through electrical, energy, et cetera, because they want to keep all the counties in mind in their adoption process. Now, commercial, currently they have the 2012 adopted with 2 amendments. I got this directly from the fire marshal. We recently had an audit in relation to the commercial review and permitting and construction process. We have audits every 3 years in a couple of different categories, and we had the commercial audit recently. They told me that they anticipate in adopting the 2018 codes for the commercial work. This is, again, straight from the state fire marshal. They anticipate it will be this coming year or the next, depending on how long or difficult the process may be. We all know that these adoption processes can sometimes take time, and at the state level, they take quadruple the time. Energy is I consistently have been calling it a Frankenstein of code adoptions, and energy is one of the biggest factors as new codes come out, because they become more and more stringent, which increases the cost on builders and is one of the most pushed back upon code adoptions. The states really listened to that. They listened to the different folks that have voiced, mainly home builders and others, but they have voiced opinions on different matters. So it's led to several things, and some of them I think are very smart, and I don't disagree with any of them. But basically, we end up with multiple energy codes being adopted, 6, 12, and 18. Commercially, they basically split the energy codes between manufacturing and storage, which are large buildings that have a lot of open space. And a lot of times those folks are up against stringent insulation requirements that aren't really needed because, I mean, it's practically an open space. I mean, it might as well be outside. They're just basically keeping their product dry. But anyway, electrical 17, and then they have the 2010 ADA standards adopted. ADA is kind of a unique animal. Accessibility can be, doesn't necessarily have to be ICC based as these other ones are. It is based in any accessibility code that is readily acceptable throughout the nation. That's why they have the ADA adopted, which is what we currently have adopted. However, I plan to make a change in that, of course, with your all's approval, and I'll explain why later. And then miscellaneous, which don't really come into, doesn't come into a lot of discussion, is the existing building code, which is great, gives a lot of leniencies to existing buildings to allow us to use them. We lean on that heavily here in the downtown specifically. Property maintenance code, which gives our code enforcement their code that they use for enforcement, and then NFPA, which the fire department uses for state buildings and educational occupancies, again, based on the state fire marshal. Okay, so that's what the state has adopted. Here's what we plan to adopt, or what we're proposing at least, and it is, I'm sorry, let me go back to this. I've got some of the information covered here, and I'm trying to uncover it. Okay, go back here. I apologize. Then bouncing all over the place here. Johnson City. Okay, here's where we want to be. Residential Building Code Appendix Q, which I'd mentioned, is tiny homes. We have 4 amendments total. I went through, I was doing some stuff right before the presentation because I wanted to give you all some very specific information about the amendments, just as I did the last time we talked about it. Within the residential, the 4 amendments that we have, 3 are identical to the state adopted amendments, and we have 1 additional, which is simply to clarify the state requirements. As I mentioned, they tend to leave a lot of the energy and electrical bound up in the residential, and what we are proposing to do, which we've always done, frankly, is separated those out to make them recognizable in their own code, their individual code, because we have multiples that we observe, and it just makes it easier to say, strike this from the residential code book, please let's observe it as its own standalone code. So that is the 1 additional clarification to the 3 amendments that are based in the Tennessee code. Commercial code, we have 10 appendices and 5 amendments. And do you all feel that this is too much detail? I don't mean to go into too much detail. I want to give you a big picture, not going into the nuances of the code unless it's needed. Can you all give me any feedback if you'd like to see any less or more information in this?
Dave, I will just ask a question. If
Yes.
you can cover, I mean, what is an appendices in regard to the building codes for commercial?
Sure. Great question. An appendices is, for example, currently and for some time we have had Appendix D in the commercial building code adopted. And what that is it's specific to the fire district, which is downtown. So it has all the regulations wrapped around a specific thing. So if you decide we have a fire district, these are the rules wrapped around the fire district, that's observable in an appendix because not everyone has a fire district that has to be observed. So they're added layers of regulation. Appendixes or appendices are often observed in a manner to not have to regulate specific to a city. So someone can say, we have these issues here. What does ICC have readily available that could help us address those? And if there's an appendix that's available, they can say, there we go, that appendix has everything we need to address this special situation, and they can choose to adopt it. We also have, for example, there's a pool and spa appendix in our current code that has broke out and become a full new standalone code. There are specific areas that need expansion on detail, really. So they get more specific. The more appendices that are adopted, they take the place of local amendments if possible.
Okay, so does that mean on commercial, we'll have 5 local amendments plus 10 appendices that are also regulatory
That's correct.
requirements?
That's correct.
With
And again,
15 additional things.
and keep in mind that commercial is representative of both fire, commercial, and existing building code. So there's 3 different code books that are jammed into that commercial category.
So those 5 local amendments, are they, again, in the category like you explained that it's just adopting the state amendments?
On commercial, we have, let's see, there is one in the building code, which is to clarify Tennessee code, again, saying this is removed, this is to be observed. In the existing building code, we actually do have a newly adopted code that we've never had before, and it observes, there's a historic loophole in flood zones. If you have historic, as the code is written, without anything local added to it or anything specific to a city, flood zones are circumnavigated by a historic building. If you have a historic building, it doesn't have to observe any flood zones or flood regulations. However, our downtown, which is fully historic and fully in a flood zone, and also undergoes a considerable deal of renovation and building, we want to be able to clarify that just because this building is historic, it's not exempt from all flood regulation. We want the flood regulation to stay, to protect the building and the investment and the property and the people, because our downtown is both historic and in a flood zone. So that is a new amendment that we're proposing. I think that's really the only new amendment actually in all of the codes that we're proposing that's new. There are 3 old fire code amendments. So you got 3 old fire codes, 1 in the existing building code, and 1 to clarify in the commercial building code, and that gives you the 5 amendments to our commercial building codes. Energy, we have 4, which are all based in the state. So everything that you see there in energy is state-based. 6, we have 4 old Johnson City specific electrical codes, and they're mostly simple about shutoffs and color coding of wires. It's a simple thing that's been left out of the national or the NEC, which is the National Electrical Code.
Hey, Dave.
Yes.
On the energy, it looks like on my screen there's 3 different shades. Like there's down to 06, then 12, then 18. Is there something with that, or is
That's
that
correct? Yes, absolutely. That represents the monster that's been created by the state, where the residential code observes the 18. Most of the commercial observes the 12. And I say most of because there are only 2 occupancy classifications that observe the 6, which are the
okay? I got
the manufacturing and the storage.
Sorry.
So there are 3 different codes, and that's the striation of color there.
I got you.
Again, that's all state based. Trade, I'm sorry, electrical was 6. Yeah, 4 were old Johnson City, and 2 are based in Tennessee code. Trade is only 1, and that is that you can't put gas and water in the same ditch. because you don't want to hit your light switch, or, if you have gas coming in with your water, there's a potential for gas to infiltrate your building in ways that it wasn't meant to if there's a leak in the gas line. And we want to avoid that. It's a safety issue. Accessibility, of course, are none. People don't tend to touch accessibility anyway. And let me mention, so accessibility, I talked about the 2010 ADA previously. We're going to I'd like to get rid of the 2010 ADA and observe the accessibility codes that are in the commercial building code, because they get updated more frequently. So there's basically in the IBC, which is the commercial building code, the chapter that observes accessibility also references, there's another document, it's called the ICC A117, which is identical to the ADA. However, it's allowed to be upgraded or updated more often for problematic areas. So it's basically keeping the ADA in a way that it can get updated more frequently. So that's why accessibility shoots all the way back up there to the 18, because that's based on the commercial. Oh man, sorry. Clicked. I don't mean to click. It's natural to just click on the screen when I go to it. Okay. Miscellaneous. Okay, we've talked about those. Does anybody have any question about Johnson City specific? I want to go to a comparison so you can see a better comparison about what we're doing here or proposing. Okay, so here's Tennessee versus us, or Johnson City specific. The biggest areas of variation are in the trade, the accessibility, and the commercial, which again, as I stated, the fire marshal has confirmed that they are planning to update in the next year or two. Simply allows us to get ahead of that. And as you'll see in the future slides here, it would be in line with actually what Kingsport and some of the other regions around us are doing or preparing to do. The text on the side here basically says the things that I have already stated. Washington
Dave,
County has been, yeah.
Dave,
Sorry.
the one that jumps out is commercial. If you go back to that
Yes,
slide, when
yes.
you look at the state
Right.
Versus us, I mean, we're considerably, I guess, have more amendments to that, and I guess it's that plus the 10 appendices.
Correct.
How does all that balance out? I mean, why would the state not be
Sure.
at the level of what you're recommending?
Absolutely. So the state rarely has appendices. As you can see across the board, all they have is Q for tiny homes. They don't typically, why that's just not a part of the code, I'm not certain. But they tend to not adopt appendices. They leave that to the jurisdictions to use as a ready-made situation solver. The appendices that we have adopted, the 10 outside of the fire district, which is long been adopted for commercial. The rest of them, I believe, are all fire-based, and that was the fire chief's desire to keep in line with what Kingsport has adopted. So whenever I show you the comparison between Johnson City and the Tri-Cities, both the Tri-Cities and the region, you'll see it lines up there a little more than it does against the state, because the state leaves that open for local jurisdictions to kind of pick and choose what they need to best fit their situations.
Dave, this is Joe. Would
Yes.
it be correct to understand then that of the 10, only one of them is the fire district and the other 9, if I'm understanding you, then are all fire safety related?
I believe so. Let me bear with me 1 second. I'll confirm that for you. Fire has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, there's actually 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are. That number actually has to be updated to 12, and I did make a note of that on here. I apologize. That was my only correction that I had to make from now until if you all desire to have this same presentation at the commission meeting to 12. And only one is building, the rest are fire. Yes. The fire has A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, and K. Oh, I'm sorry. L, M, and N. There are 3 more. So fire has the majority of the appendices adopted. Again, it lines up with what Kingsport has, and I believe that that was the chief's focus or intention, was to line up with our neighbors. But absolutely, and I apologize. I have to modify that number. It's not correct on this presentation. Any other questions about Tennessee or the state versus Johnson City here? The fire chief actually also notified me that he wasn't able to be here tonight, that he was, I believe he said he was out of town, but that he did anticipate, of course, being available for the Thursday night commission meeting. And I was going to talk to him after tonight to kind of give him a update on anything. So if there's anything here fire related that you want me to communicate, I'd be willing to. Of course, you can do that directly to the chief too, if you wish. I don't mean to be his in-between person, but I'm just letting you know that we communicated about this. Look at Washington County. They have been really online and in sync with us greatly. Scott Chapman over there has done a great job of wanting to sync up with us. And it's on a regular basis that they call from the county and say, how do you guys view this specific code instance? Or, what are you guys doing here for this? So they're making a great effort to stay regional, and I appreciate it greatly. It makes a lot of sense, and they continue to do so. Now, as I'd mentioned, amendments and appendices result in a stricter code. I'd like you to keep in mind, if you are in any way judging what Washington County has done here, that they don't have all of the other codes adopted. So they must be a little more stringent in order to achieve a lot of the same things. So for example, if you were to take out the trade and the electrical and the energy, and you added all those things in to what we have, in addition to some of the, not really the fire, I guess, but the fire is more commercial. But they have to take consideration in a lot of other things, like they don't exempt out energy, they don't exempt out electrical, and they have to build all that into their residential. Basically, their guys have one book that they go by instead of a volume of several books. So that's an explanation of why theirs looks a little more complicated than ours. But mostly, outside of their appendices, they and a lot of their amendments also include things like the addition of modifying things in code that say that give definition to the municipality and simple things along those lines, where we've had that built in and really never observed that as a need to adopt. So I've gone through some historical adoption techniques that we've used in the past in order to keep our amendments low. But so anyway, and I think that's basically what I say there in all this text. Here's the Tri-Cities: Johnson City, Kingsport, and Bristol. As I had mentioned, if you take a look at the appendices that are adopted here in the commercial bar for Kingsport, you can see between commercial, fire, and existing building, they've got 28 versus our proposed, well, it's not 10. Ours would be 15. So 15 versus 28, still a considerable difference. And that doesn't impact the amendments at all. I haven't really heard much complaint out of the folks that are building in Kingsport. I mean, they always say, oh, I don't know, that when a builder isn't happy, sometimes they'll tell you what's happening in a different jurisdiction, but in the other jurisdiction, the same thing's happening. So I've got nothing bad to say about Kingsport. They've done a great job of stepping ahead and taking on the 18 and making the adoption and making it stick. But you can see their electrical, they got 0. The trade, they've got 0. The basis of ours are based in old adopted amendments.
Dave,
Yeah.
Dave, one of the things that we've been talking about for a long time were, of course, our local amendments.
Sure.
To what extent, you know, I don't know on electrical, we have 6 amendments. Did we used to have 10 or did we used to have 4? And what, you know, are we trying to kind of?
We have less in every capacity. We don't have more in any category than we used to. And I'll tell you, a big one in electrical is the gauge wire. We used to make everyone use a heavier gauge wire, which is safer. It's absolutely safer. It serves a longer electrical run better. It serves a bend better where it won't get hot. It allows more current to be carried. However, it's not the base of code. We went above that, and it caused a lot of people hardship. So we cut that out. And that was one of the major ones that we cut out to be in line with both the state and our local, the other local jurisdictions, our neighbors. That was huge in electrical. I think that's honestly one of the biggest things we've done in electrical, and everything else is basically, so Kingsport adopted before the state. So their electrical doesn't represent exactly what the state has in line. And the state has, let me go back to that number. I have it written here, so bear with me 1 second. In electrical, mechanical fire existing energy. This must be electrical here. Yes, okay, electrical. So we have two of our electricals are from Tennessee, which transverse over from the residential, and the other 3 we have are old. One has to do with color, and the other 2 have to do with shutoffs. The shutoff was based on the Severe, the building fire downtown at the John Severe, where cutoffs have to be within 10 feet of the door so that they're accessible for firefighters. The other is the cutoff whenever you have multiple meters, such as an apartment building, where they have to be clustered together. It's all about fire being able to shut off meters in one area. It's wrapped around fire, but they're meter shut-offs regulations. So we got colors, 2 meter shutoffs, and then the others from the state. So it's extremely minimal. Again, Kingsport adopted all of theirs before the state. The state just came out with their requirements in April for residential. And again, they haven't fully adopted their commercial yet. I spoke to Tim Planner today, who is the gentleman who is over the state regulation for code adoption. And I asked him, you know, what are they going to do for folks that don't have these things adopted? What are the timetables? Jurisdictions that don't have their newest things that came out in April adopted, what are they going to do? He said a lot of folks waited out to be made to upgrade, you know, so he goes around and he talks to all the jurisdictions. When that happens, it turns into you need to change your codes right now. And they're not lenient at all. He said the bulk of jurisdictions are going to the 18 as in where they are, and they're doing so readily. He said as of November, folks that weren't in the 18, he was asking them to simply get a plan together. What's your plan? You know, how are you progressing? What are you going to adopt? So we haven't seen the full impact of folks that aren't up to par with what the state has. And he reiterated also in that conversation that, of course, we can't be less stringent in the state. So whatever it is they have, whatever their stringency is, we have to be at that same level. Bristol is actually, even though they're shown on this chart to be at 12, they are in their their last of 3 readings to upgrade their codes. I didn't hear back from their chief building official as to the specifics of what's being adopted. Despite asking, we're all busy. It's, holiday season. So I would anticipate they're going to the 18. The gentleman at the state, Mr. Planer, also anticipated they were going to the 18. So that's what we anticipate to see from Bristol. I don't know why we wouldn't for what the other folks in the region are doing. And you can see that they don't adopt amendments locally, but they lean very heavily on the appendices. They almost adopt all appendices for every code book. You can see 10 in the trades, 20 in the commercial, and a great deal there in the residential as well. Regionally, I included some other folks here. Greenville has actually been very much on board with wanting to align with us as well. The gentleman down there, they haven't put anything into motion, but I had a pretty good conversation. Bert C is the chief building official down there. Had a conversation with him before we even started this whole process, and he said, whatever you get drafted up, send it to me. We want to be on board with what you guys are doing when we're talking about the regional efforts. You can see Sullivan County. They are fairly in line with Washington outside of the amendments and appendices. Elizabethton will most likely stay in the 15 until I believe the state. I haven't heard back from the chief building official there, despite my efforts to contact him. The state even anticipated that they would most likely stay in the 15 until they were made to go to the 18. And that gives you, there's a lot of other representation that's not shown here. The folks that are shown here were the most receptive to talking about regional codes and getting on the same page and kind of tuning in. These jurisdictions shown were the most receptive to having those conversations early on. And that's the last slide I have. Do you guys have any questions specific? I'd be glad to answer anything, or if I don't know the answer, I'll be glad to investigate and get you guys any information that you need.
So commissioners, and I know we have some people on the call who have called in about the building codes, and we'd certainly like to hear from them. So let me turn it over to the commissioners if there are any other questions or things that we need to know to interpret these slides, and then we'll hear from some of the other folks.
Mayor, this is Joe Wise. I have a question. Dave, as we talk about the appendices in the code, are they, how do I ask this? Are they situational in that, like, they deal with a downtown or a fire district or something, or do they actually layer, or like tiny houses, or do they layer on new restrictions the way an amendment might? Does that make sense?
Now, I'm sorry, my audio broke up a little bit there on the front. Are you speaking specifically to Johnson City or across the region?
Well, when you're looking at folks that have adopted the appendix or appendices in the code, the 18, are they imposing more restrictions or addressing issues like tiny houses, if I'm making sense?
No, I get you. And I honestly can't speak to that. I haven't spoke to them to that specificity to see if those are for certain situations that they have locally. I'm not certain about that, but I'd be glad to find out if that would help you.
Yeah, I guess I just want to understand, when you look across, obviously there's a whole bunch of these appendices out there that you can pull off the shelf and adopt.
Yes.
Is the nature of those appendices to create more restrictions or to give more application and unique categories of need, I guess would be, we can look at what the appendices say. Do they get more restrictive, or are they addressing specific challenges?
They're most definitely all more restrictive, but they could very well be more restrictive for the challenges that you speak of. So I'll talk with the other jurisdictions and get that information for you to help clarify.
Okay, are there any other commission questions or clarification? So Dave, you invited some other guests to be on tonight. I don't know how you want to handle that, or Pete, or who wants to, do we need to pose a question or just get their input in terms of the direction that we're going?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you who we've got here. Let's see, I'm going down through the line. I'm trying to expand. I might not have my folks expanded completely. Lisa Luster is from the Home Builders. She's the president of that group. And I'm actually just going to mention everyone off top. And then if any of you have anything specific to add. Basically, I wanted you all to know that we were engaging these folks and make them available for any input that they might have. Lisa Luster's from the Home Builders. Ben McMurray is from the AGC, which is the general contractors. They do more commercial work than the Home Builders do. Let's see here, and we've also got. I thought I saw
Shane is on the phone. That would be commercial, I'm sure.
Yeah, and he represented more of a developer's viewpoint, where there's not really a developers organization, but they have a large impact, and of course they play a really large part of the process.
So why don't we do this? Can we go back to full screen and then have Lisa, if you'd like to just add any comments, if you could unmute yourself, and we'll start with you.
Well, that's a dangerous thing to start with me, isn't it? You might want to take that moment. What has been the most, Shane Abraham, I saw you laughing at that. What has been the most important thing to us this entire time, we have worked across the state of Tennessee with the Home Builder Association of Tennessee. And we have worked with Gary Farley at the state of Tennessee with the codes adoption. The electrical codes, it was very important to us because of arc fault circuit interrupters versus ground fault circuit interrupters. Yeah, well, it's been a long day. That we were being aware of what our builders were having to deal with, and they were dealing with a lot. So as those were being adopted, we were asking that the state of Tennessee pay attention to these things. And then we were asking that our municipalities paid attention to the fact that we were fighting for this on a state level. We worked very hard with the state of Tennessee. So when Dave sent us all the information last week, I started dissecting it immediately. I passed it out to several of our builders to ask them to please look through it, because although I am the executive director, I did not stay at a Holiday Inn Express, and I am not a builder. So I will not pretend to say that I know how to build a house. I can darn sure do drywall, but that's about it. So I asked them to please take a look at it. We compared to what the state of Tennessee had adopted and what we had been working on, and what we found. And I sent a message to Preston and Dave both, thanking them for acknowledging all of the hard work that we had done on a state level. So from what we can tell, Johnson City is adopting what the state of Tennessee adopted for us. So on the residential side of things, we're rather pleased at this stage, unless there's something hidden that I haven't found. We're happy with the electrical codes. The energy codes are the bane of our existence, and we'll just face that fact. But the fact that Johnson City is looking at the issues that we were having with it, the cost increases that were going to be compounded along with the lumber raise hikes and all of those things. So as it stands right now, like I said, unless there's something hidden somewhere that I've not found, we support what Johnson City is adopting.
Good. Thank you, Lisa. Commissioners, before we move on to the next, do you have any questions of Lisa? Thank you, and thank you for all the work you do in the building community, Lisa. We know you've got everybody's back there. So, Shane, I'm just kind of going down the squares here.
No, I appreciate that. I'll be brief. And, I think almost from a cultural standpoint, I've noticed Lisa was with us many years ago, I think about in 2005, when at some point you asked this question, Jenny, that I want to say, we had dozens and dozens of amendments above and beyond the international code, quite a few years back. Very challenging to navigate, much more stringent than what the international community called out for us. And so I applaud those efforts. And just in regard to the industry as a whole and what you see that coupling with municipalities and counties, we're doing work in 3 other states right now. And you're seeing this. You can Google regulatory costs, and yeah, COVID has made big inflationary challenges of building materials. Certainly that's a challenge, but those kind of ebb and flow with supply and demand. Regulatory costs never quit increasing, and they're the major challenge to builders and developers right now, and have been for some time. But we know that's not a score we can settle here tonight. We know there's these codes have to be adopted within a certain time frame, and so we understand that. And so I think there's been great effort. I think the challenge that we see, and we've got one specifically, is that sometimes these amendments with just a few words can, when applied in certain applications, can really greatly add cost to a project. And so we want to be careful of that. And we've got one in particular that we want to talk about in regard to the fire code and standpipes. And we've got an application in particular, and this is, when you've got small projects that are small buildings, that you've got an amendment to an exception that can add upwards of $200,000 to a small project, it just kills the project. And so I hate to see that happen in other applications throughout the city. And so that's really why my presence is here, but this has been educational, and I appreciate the opportunity to discuss it.
Okay, very good. And so you're in conversation with Dave and Preston and folks down at the city?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Shane.
Thank you.
Will we be able to hear more about that between now and Thursday, or at Thursday's meeting?
I would be happy to, again, I don't know how much detail you want here tonight. Maybe this is the best place, but, we've got a project going on downtown. And when you get into 3rd floor applications where you've got, and I'm not a code specialist, nor am I an architect. And so I'll speak to this the best detail that I can. But I can tell you, with the engineers and architects, the design folks that we've got involved with the project we're trying to do in downtown right now, because we're going to have living space above 30 feet. There is a wet standpipe that will require a pump because of this amendment to this exception. And because of that, it's going to, this is not a very big project. And to have a single line item that adds $200,000 of cost is a big challenge. And in what we've tried to research, even with Bristol and Kingsport, in their fire code amendments, don't address this than what we can find. Maybe we've missed something, but we've really spent some time in recent days looking at this. And so that's a challenge of ours, and something I think we really want to consider, because that will absolutely kill. And there's numerous people that will speak to this as well that I know plan to, that, anything above 30 feet, anytime you get into a 3rd story, basically, and you're a small downtown building, this is a line item expense you can't surmount unless someone gives you the building for free, basically. It's a challenge, big challenge.
You're on mute, Jenny.
There we go. Sorry about that. Ben, how about you?
Yes,
ahead.
ma'am. As regards to on the commercial side of things for this code adoption, it's from what we're seeing as far as commercial contractors and builders, it's kind of what is already been done around this region, as Mr. McClellan kind of indicated, as far as coming up to the 2018 code. We're in so many markets as it is right now, as far as different regions around this state. It's not really old hat, but it's what we're used to dealing with right now anyway. There are a few things in here that primarily focused, like Mr. Abrams said, with the wet stand that that are specific to this area. But other than that, we have not taken any exception to what is being posted here.
Very good. Thank you, Ben. Are there any others on the call who would like to speak in regard to our building codes? Okay. Commissioners, any other questions or comments before we move to the next topic?
Mayor, I had a question, which relates, it looks like to me, and obviously this is a foreign language. It's completely a foreign language to me. I'll talk pharmacology with you, but I can't talk building codes. And it looks like from Dave's presentation, and Dave, thank you for taking the time to make it a picture. I can understand pictures a lot better than words. That the majority of the changes related to fire safety or life safety. And is there a way that we can, and I think Shane brought one of those out, is there a way that we can see those, and if the chief is here, he could do it, pulled out to where we could see, is this the thing that's going to separate us from a standardization across the region? That's the one question. Obviously, I've asked it 2 or 3 times, so you know I'm going to ask it again. Is in the region, is there anything when we adopt these codes that, I mean, maybe some of the builders don't like some of the things, but regionally we're on the same page on this thing. Would I be correct in saying the majority of our changes to these codes relate to fire safety? And I'm not against fire safety. Do not think that I am. I just would like to make sure that we're on the same page with pretty much everybody else. And are there any of these big issues that would kill projects that we may do that? We may say we're going to implement this, and if it kills the project, it kills the project. But I would want to know that going in before I voted on something like that.
I'll be glad to speak with the chief with that more in depthly. I will tell you that the fire pump amendment, the standpipe amendment, is not new. It's been standing for quite a few years. It does tend to pose an added layer of issue to folks that aren't expecting it. Out of town folks sometimes are surprised by it. And to the best of my knowledge, actually, I can't even speak to it. Regionally, I don't know how it's addressed in other regions, so it's unfair for me to say, you know, how that's treated. But seeing that as a large issue, it's definitely needs to have some more time put into it to give you all the best information so you can be confident in your adoption of what's being proposed.
So Dave, my follow-up question to that is, if this is such a big issue, why is it not covered in state fire code?
That's a common question, and that actually applies to every one of the amendments. Bristol is the only code in the region that has no amendments, but then they, you know, have all the appendices adopted. And frankly, I believe a local amendment can offer you a lot more leniency than a full appendices that hasn't been thought through or made specific for your locale. Again, I don't know how what they have adopted impacts this specific issue because it's, you know, really fire related in nature, and that's not my focus. However, I'll be glad to gather more information on that to speak to it in a better way. Or like I said, the chief himself will be there on Thursday, so I'm sure he can do a much better job at addressing that. But we recognize it as something to be addressed.
All right. Other questions? Thank you all very much. Dave, thank you for your presentation. It was very helpful. And Shane and Lisa and Ben, thanks for joining us tonight and taking your time with us. So without further ado then, Pete, I'll turn it back to you and you can introduce the next topic.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
There, is that better?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
sorry.
Repeat everything you said.
Luckily, I didn't say much yet. Quick, two points I'll follow up on to the building code conversation. The issue that Shane brought up dealing with the manually operated or dry standpipes, the amendment is the only issue that I heard brought up with the amendments. I think everybody's good with all the other amendments. The second point I will bring up in regard to building issues, as the chief explained it to Dave and I a week ago, whatever. As I understand it, without that amendment, what's going to happen in those buildings that have that particular kind of standpipe in them is we're going to pull up with a fire truck and hook up to a hydrant and to their standpipe. And the only thing that fire truck is going to do is going to be to function as a fire pump for that building. We will not be able to use that truck to spray water on a fire. Now that's a generalization of what the chief told us a week or 10 days ago. And that's the chief's concern, is that he's going to have an apparatus on site that really doesn't help him fight fire. Now, I'll let Chief Stables get into more detail on that, and I will get him to get you a much more detailed response than that prior to your meeting on Thursday. Y'all don't need to hear his answer for the first time on Thursday, so we'll get you something hopefully before the end of the day tomorrow in greater detail as far as that particular issue goes. At this time, Bob and Charlie have been working with Andy and Brenda and Sonny and several other people working on a set of draft bylaws for the Conventions and Visitors Bureau. So I'm gonna throw it over to Bob. He and Charlie really have done 99.9% of the work on this thing, along with Sonny, and they're much more fluent in what this is all about than myself. So Bob, if you would take that and run with it, please, sir.
Sure. Several of us have worked on these. We started working on the bylaws, and we've ran through several versions of them. I can hit the highlights on this. I'll be glad to do that. We ended up with 9 members, staggered terms, all appointed by the commission. 3 would represent the hotel industry. 3 would kind of be a little more at large with specific backgrounds, somehow related to tourism. A permanent rep from the Northeast Tennessee Tourism Board, and 2 appointments by the City Commission. 1 could be the manager or his designee. The board has the power to complete, transactions and on business matters, manage the affairs of the CVB. The executive director has hiring, firing, staffing, discipline, approval power to do that. There's a chairperson, vice chair, treasury secretary, finance committee. They can establish other committees as desired. We initially set out a board to function for the next 6 months, composed of 6 members. These were nominated by Brenda and Andy. That's just to kind of guide the board to get the CVB set up and running on its own. And then if any of those wanted to apply in the regular commission board reappointment process, they could do so. And then, but the official board, if you will, would take their seats in July. That's kind of the highlights of that. I know Brenda has also done a number of other activities in trying to get the CVB ready to operate independently beginning January 1st. There's some others that we're working on together and looking at. I know they're looking at a facility. They can stay in their existing building for several more months. So that gives them some flexibility there. On our end at this point, we haven't got into the relationship with the city's communication and marketing staff. That's to me, that's kind of separate from, it's related, but kind of separate from what we're trying to do now. The intention is to get the bylaws approved and to get an initial board set up to run it for the next, to help run it, work with Brenda for the next 6 months. Any staffing, not knowing where we're going to be physical location wise, the relationship on a staff person there, that could transpire to 1st of July. There could be some budget costs associated with that. If we have staff in the building, we may want to pay, our fair share of the rent. But I'll open it up from that with questions. And Charlie, did you have anything you'd like to add?
Only you may have stated this, Bob, but obviously these bylaws, and I'll thank Sunny Sandoz for her work on this. We try to structure these bylaws taking the best format from other bylaws, some of which are in operation here at the city on some of the advisory boards of the city, recognizing that this is not an advisory board. Some of the best elements of the bylaws from other agencies or other boards and commissions have been merged in here, but obviously tailored to the interests of the CVB, and rightly so. So I guess imitation is the best form of flattery, and this somehow does try to capture some of the best sections of other bylaws, but I think this is a workable bylaw structure for the CVB, and of course it does have a very definitive structure that has city representation while including community representation from the very industry it's intended to represent. So anyhow, I want to thank everybody for the work on it.
Yeah, I would just add to that. Charlie mentioned Sunny, very involved. Keisha was involved. Andy and Brenda were also highly involved in this. It was a good team effort.
Commissioners, follow-up questions to, mainly we've just talked about the appointments of the new board members. So there will be a temporary 6-month group of 6 that would kind of help this get off the ground. Is that what I'm understanding, Bob?
Yes, that's correct. We wanted to keep it small enough, have a fair representation, but keep it small enough so it could be a good working group.
Okay. Is in these bylaws, is it addressed the process by which new appointments will be made? We have some groups that will send over a slate of candidates, and if we don't appoint them, then, they get upset, but then we may have other applications as well. So what is the process to really review and to get new applicants in front of the commission when there's a needed vacancy to be filled?
Speaking for myself, we didn't really talk about that. I envision it to follow that the board would not present a slate of candidates. but it would follow the commission whenever we advertise for positions in probably April, that the advertisement would describe the openings, and then whoever wanted to apply for that would just apply for that. In this case, we would have to tailor that a little bit more in those categories, whether you're representing specifically the hotelier slots for 3 and the other 3 slots. So I think we have to put a little more thought into the description that we put out to the public. And then kind of like we did before, we might, I kind of hadn't thought through this, but we might group all the hotelier applicants together so you could look at those, and then we would look at the others and group them together. Now in this initial appointment next June, or with that appointment to start in July, the terms would need to be staggered. So somehow of those appointments, one would be 1 year, one would be 2, and one would be 3. So it may be that one hotelier appointment is 1 year, another one's 2, and another one's 3. And on the other ones, it's the same, 1, 2, and 3. Then they could rotate off that.
All right, other questions? Commissioners?
I just got a couple of, not necessarily questions, because it's a well-written, detailed document. And I think this is critical because this board is not advisory. They basically, and that's the way it's set up, and the way it should be. And I've always been a proponent of less detail in bylaws, more detail in policy and procedure, which allowed you to be more flexible and nimble, if you will. And sometimes we handcuff ourselves, especially in academia, with bylaws that if we'd have written that in a policy and procedure, which can still have the same effect and same power, but you can more easily adjust a policy and procedure than you can bylaws. I don't have a statement about the bylaws that says this in my opinion, needs to be pulled out and put in a policy and procedure. But I would hope that we would be able to look at the document and ask those kinds of questions about, are there things in here that could be pulled out and put in a policy and procedure format that would be a separate governing document for the CVB that would allow that board more flexibility, if you will, and the commission more flexibility. That's just a general question that I would pose. And then one of the things, this has been a long time coming. If Brenda, I could see her face there, and she'd be, yeah, it's been a long time coming to get this flexibility and to get to where the CVB is on their own and an ability to move quickly. And I would want to have all those conversations with the people in the city to make sure everybody's on the same page about what happens with finance, what happens with the marketing information and those kind of things. I don't have any particular critical statement about the bylaws and the work that's been done. My comments are more general. I would have loved to have had this in a face-to-face workshop where we could have spent a morning and just really gone over this and have everybody walking away feel like, okay, we're ready to go. And maybe pull some of the detail out and make it a little more flexible. That's just a general comment. And I was going to not say this tonight, but a general comment from somebody that's at their last agenda meeting. So for whatever it's worth, those are my comments. Great document though, and a lot of good work.
Commissioner, maybe I can, at least from my perspective, give you some response on, I don't disagree with you, first of all, in your observation. But I think from my perspective, the intent of perhaps the detail in these bylaws was to provide, even though the CVB has been around for quite a number of years, decades, in fact, to get them off on a just firm footing by providing the structure, recognizing that we also put a clause in here to amend the bylaws so if in fact the CVB meets and determines that some of this stuff could be perhaps extracted and put into another format, we did provide a bylaw process for that to occur. So to your point, that may be an opportunity for them to address once they get situated, but we felt we better put some things down in writing to provide a pathway to move forward and still provide maybe an option to modify that at a later date at their discretion.
Well, thanks, Charlie. That might accomplish the same thing, because I'm sure that 9-person board that takes, that's seated next summer, I'll bet they'll want to look over this and really dive into the detail. Again, this is not an advisory board. They have a lot of responsibility, as they should. Nobody's going to get on this board just thinking it's going to be something that's not serious. That's how we want them to act, because this is very important to Johnson City's future. So I'm glad to hear you say that, and I would encourage that 9-person board put that on the agenda on the first couple of meetings. Thank you.
Good. Brenda and Andy, y'all want to unmute your video? And there we go. Hi, Andy.
Hey.
Maybe y'all could, and Commissioner Fowler as well, since he's our representative on the CVB board currently, maybe y'all could just kind of walk through just some real highlights of the timeline as you're moving forward. What are some of the big milestones you have to hit to make this transition fully functional?
I think Brenda would be best to walk through everyone and on the process. They have put in an exemplary amount of work, obviously, along with Bob, Charlie, and Sonny, to get this process going. And I think, to kind of reiterate what Charlie was saying, these bylaws can obviously be amended, and we have 6 months until we appoint the 9-person board. But this was a way to, accomplish a significant amount of work, but also allow more dominoes to fall to become an independent entity. And I think Brenda can kind of walk everyone through where everything's at as far as the punch list goes.
Sure. Again, I would like to echo and say thank you so much to the countless hours that Bob and Charlie and Sonny and Pete have put into this process. It's been, pretty remarkable to see this team, work together so closely to, align, the missions and strategies that are important to all of us. And I think from, the standpoint of punch list and things like that, Sonny has been, tremendous, and she currently is working on our 501c6 designation. We have gotten our EIN number, and we have opened a bank account, but we have a bank account with no money in it right now. But we will start that process with the chamber telling them how much money we need for them to write a check for as soon as as possible. I know that we have looked at both like budgets from the standpoint of standalone and budget for 6 months. And, we've done, a lot of that kind of thing. We also have looked at things from, we know from officers and directors liability insurance and those types of things. We also working with, the city and talking about, health insurance, but we also have talked with our current health insurance provider to make sure that the staff does not go, one day that's not covered with insurance. And we also have now gotten the change in the trademarking for the Southern Dozen, because originally the trademark was in both the chamber and the CVB name. And so we have gone through that process and have gotten that changed. We are looking at everything from, from a printer, copying machine, and, the typical things that, that you have to do. So we have a punch list that's probably about 2 to 3 pages long, and we're making, good progress on that. And Bob Cantler has said that obviously that, they're not going to kick us out the door on January the 1, that whatever amount of time that it takes for us to transfer, then that is okay. And that seems to be fine right now.
Okay, well, this is exciting. I think you'll be coming out the other side, hopefully, as things perhaps straighten out next second quarter or so, after we get vaccines going, we'll start seeing more activity for sure. But anyway, we thank y'all, and Bob and Charlie, thanks a lot for y'all's work, and Sonny's and Pete's and Andy and Brenda. And, it's a new chapter. So
it is
time to move forward. So we're excited.
Absolutely, Mayor. It is a new chapter, and it's one that we've never walked in this chapter before. So I think all of us are learning things as we go, and it's been a very interesting process, and I think we've all have learned a lot along the way.
Well, I think we have high expectations.
You know what? I don't think maybe that your expectations are higher than mine, but our expectations are pretty darn high too.
Yeah, that's good. Commissioner Fowler, is there anything you want to add before we move into retail strategies?
No, I think we're in good hands. Been a lot of thought into the process, and I think they've got some really good people working on the next 6 months on getting it ready to go. So I'm looking forward to the product because I know it's going to be great.
Very good. Any other questions, commissioners? Pete?
No,
okay.
ma'am.
Thank y'all so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, at this time, Mayor, I'm going to turn it over to Preston to introduce our partners with Retail Strategies, who are going to give us an update on the state of retail and what a bright forecast we have for first and second quarter of 21 coming. Preston?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Mayor and others, Retail Strategies, yes, they have unmuted, so they are listening and live. They are coming to us from, I believe, from their home office in Birmingham, Alabama. I believe we will have John Ruzick on. There they are. And we look forward to this. This is the annual update. As you recall, you re-entered a fresh contract with them last year. And so this is their annual update of the work they've done in 2020 and some of what is to come, as noted by Mr. Peterson. So I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you.
Hi there. Thank you for your time today. We're also on the phone, so we've got a little audio trouble, so we're double dipping here. But like Preston said, we have a brief presentation to update you on our efforts and over the last year, and also tell you how our company has responded to coronavirus, and then of course tell you about plans for 2021. So I'm going to share my screen. We have a short presentation. Come on now. Okay. So like Preston said, the City of Johnson City, Tennessee entered a 3-year partnership with Retail Strategies in January of 2016. The city chose to renew our partnership in October of 2019 for a 3-year period. So Retail Strategies is pleased to begin our 5th year of proactive retail recruitment with the City of Johnson City. So we've had a number of retailers to land in the market since the beginning of our partnership, including a few in 2020. So this list just reviews that list of retailers that we consider successful in landing and that we had something to do with. So we highlight both estimated annual sales in the market as well as jobs created by that retailer opening in the market. I'll give you a second to review that. So we estimate that with our help, there's been more than 450 jobs created in the market, over $66 million in increased annual retail sales volumes, which equates to a $1.8 million increase in sales tax revenue based on a 2.75% local sales tax option. So we continue to update Johnson City's marketing material on a regular basis. This includes a customized marketing package with a population snapshot, an outline of demographic information, as well as retail gap numbers. The same document includes a retailer aerial of the market. So all of this information is organized and easy to read, allowing retailers to quickly understand the market and see where their concept might best fit in. This material is also available to Bob and Preston and their staff, and I understand utilized somewhat regularly by their team. Additionally, we invest heavily in resources that allow us to regularly update your demographic data in the market and provide up-to-date information to not only city staff, but also to brokers, real estate brokers, retailers, and developers. We regularly lean on these resources to ensure that we're telling the most accurate and the most positive story for Johnson City using our up-to-date information that really resonates with retailers. We consider ourselves your research concierge, so we can run customized or area-specific reports for any of your city projects, but we can also provide this information on a site-specific basis to area brokers and developers when they need it. So always feel free to put us in touch with anyone doing a project in the market in order for us to offer as much as we can to make their project successful. One of the more unique projects we were able to assist with this year is an economic impact study of a proposed retail development on the north part of the market, of course, on Boots Creek Road. By compiling per square foot sales volumes of various retail categories, we were able to measure the estimated job growth as well as increased sales tax revenues that would be associated with that proposed development. So therefore, we were really able to provide Preston and Bob's team with the facts and figures necessary to weigh potential incentive offerings if that were ever to come to fruition. And obviously, in this economic climate, that project has been put on hold, but we've still got those numbers and they're easy to update. And of course, this is tough to read, I know, on that example. If anyone wants to see that study in more depth, we're happy to provide that to them. Of course, we experienced what is probably the largest economic disruptor in history with the coronavirus, and that has been a really important year for retail strategies to practice what we preach, and that is to pivot our strategy and adapt to what the industry demands, and to continually pursue what adds value to our clients. Just an update on what we've seen retail-wise is that grocery stores, hardware, and food service, that is restaurants that focus on pickup or drive-through offerings, those restaurants or those retailers are really thriving. We see that soft goods, hospitality, meaning hotels, and then full-service restaurants are failing. We see that retailers who are able to pivot to an online strategy are succeeding, whereas retailers slow to change are quickly exiting the marketplace. We've seen a couple examples of that in Johnson City, which we'll touch on briefly. We've also seen that retailer footprints are quickly changing. So drive-through and pickup windows are now being required for many restaurants, whereas they previously might not have been. Stores are also becoming smaller, so the footprint's smaller, but requiring larger parking and drive-through accommodations. From the municipal side, we've seen that larger markets who are relying on luxury goods sales or tourism and business travel, those are the ones that are really suffering as far as sales tax revenues go. Secondary and tertiary markets are seeing relatively little in sales tax revenue losses due to a decrease in commuting to other markets. So you're seeing people are staying, working from their home, not traveling to find some sort of luxury good, but really staying in the market and buying what's available in the market. We also see that regional tourism-focused markets are seeing increases from day trippers and weekend visitors. Like everybody in our industry, retail strategies, our normal operations and methods have had to quickly change with all of our in-person conferences having been canceled in 2020. Nonetheless, Johnson City has been represented virtually at a number of conferences. But now more than ever, Retail Strategies is leveraging our network of retailers, tenant representatives, developers, and brokers to really make sure that outreach and communication continues on your behalf. Of course, while outreach in person has significantly decreased, our outreach through phone and email has increased tenfold. We have that advantage due to our large presence and participation with ICSC, and simply due to our large collective network under our own roof. We've also found that during this time, people in the industry are reaching out to us more than ever, simply because we are the people who play a go-between between all these different relationships. And we really strive to make sure that we're maintaining relationships not only locally in your market, but also regionally and nationally with the players in the game, to make sure that those people are maintaining their connections and a free flow of information is continuing to happen that only benefits retail growth in Johnson City. We're also continuing to offer retail webinars as a resource to our clients, as a way to stay up to date with retail news, industry trends, and ways that retailers are adapting their growth plans right now. So even though some of our traditional offerings have changed, we're continuing to find ways to add value to make sure that your team can stay abreast of retail adaptation. We're working hard to stay up to date on coronavirus-related legislation and policies and funding sources available to retailers, consumers, and municipalities. Although this is not part of the suite of services that we initially offered, we see this as a part of our strategy to adapt and to add value as our role expands in the current market. We want to deliver clear and concise and accurate information to your staff, so that saves time for them having to research and muddle through all of this information, some of which is accurate, some of which is not. So we really try to be the filter for all of that, deliver them a clean, concise product for them to really start to implement those policies locally. Again, just trying to do the legwork and add value where we can. Our role in communicating retail news and updates to our clients has become more important than ever. We've been able to let Bob and Preston know about a lot of retailers' closings to expect. And then our biggest role there is really to try to stay ahead of those vacancies to see what backfill opportunities we can assist with prior to the retailer leaving. That way there's no disruption of tenancy for the center owner, as well as a little disruption for sales tax revenues for the market. So you can see here we've highlighted a number of examples of retailers who have decreased their presence in markets like Johnson City, as well as just closed altogether. And we've really tried to stay ahead of that and understand who the backfill players are in those situations, and what we can do to assist a speedier transition for those spaces. I think we are most proud this year of some innovation that we've adopted in being able to help our clients to estimate sales tax revenue changes amidst coronavirus. So in April or May, our team developed a sales tax revenue forecasting tool, and I believe that Bob and Preston passed it off to your finance department. The purpose of this tool was to be able to estimate changes in sales tax revenue based on retail category performance. So it was created to be customized by county to each of our markets in Tennessee. So you can see I've highlighted Washington County there. And we had a training session with all of our points of contact to be able to use this and understand exactly how it can be customized to your market based on local knowledge of how different retail categories, sales in those categories have either increased or decreased based on a standard baseline. So I feel like this is a very successful tool and something that we were very proud of to offer to our clients at no additional charge. We're also continuing to update our property catalog of over 90 sites in the Johnson City market. We continually communicate with our points of contact on these sites in order to offer a number of different ways to assist, whether that be through marketing the site, through site-specific demographic data or research. We can offer retailer void analysis to a broker trying to backfill space. We've offered outreach assistance or connecting them with the right retailer that they're looking for a space. So, again, this is something that we strive to add value in the city whichever way we can. We can be as involved or as absent as the landowner wants us to be, but we always just try to at least maintain that relationship, build that trust, and build that rapport with the property owner or broker. That way, if they ever do need our help, they know exactly where to find us. And if we have a prospect for them, we can easily connect the two parties to make something happen there quickly. Each instance, of course, is different in the way that we interact with property owners in your market, but the end goal, of course, is to assist in bringing additional retail to Johnson City. In a market like Johnson City, and especially during the coronavirus, we see it as vitally important to monitor not only closures, but also to assist in developing backfill strategies for existing space. Due to the high cost of construction, developers are finding it increasingly difficult to be able to coincide with what retailers will pay for rent in instances of new construction. So that's why you really see very little ground up retail development these days for that exact reason. Just the fact that the line for cost and the line for rent don't always meet. For this reason, backfilling existing space or what we term second generation space is a really great opportunity for robust markets like Johnson City. So, as we learn about existing space coming available in your market, we are immediately reaching out to that broker in order to assist them with the prospect list, or we may already have a prospect in mind that can work for that space, and we can make that connection, and again, do what we do to play matchmaker for that space. Our outreach this year on your behalf has been pretty robust. In the last year, we have reached out to well over 100 retailers, which includes every category, which restaurants, clothing users, health and medicine users, entertainment users, hardware, grocers, general merchandise, fitness users, automotive, computer and electronics, pet supply, shoe stores, home furnishing retailers, sports and recreation, hobby and craft. So a number of different retail categories that we're reaching out to specific retailers. Additionally, we've used our data capabilities to run an updated retailer void analysis, which continually just updates and lets your prospect list stay current. That way, we're not missing anybody. There's nobody that we're overlooking as far as possibilities in your market. Please understand at this point we can't be extremely specific about the retailers who we are reaching out to or who are close to landing the market, just because, as I tell Preston a lot, loose lips sink ships. Retailers don't really like to have too much information about their background ongoings to be public until they're ready for that, simply because land prices can magically go up, rents can magically go up if the property owner hears of who's looking. However, we have provided we've assisted a number of fitness users in finding space. We've got restaurant users looking for inline space as well as freestanding space. We've provided ground-up development opportunities at the former Kmart to a number of different restaurants looking for ground-up opportunities as well in the market. We have communicated with 2 noticeably absent clothing retailers in your market about redevelopment opportunities at the former Toys R Us, as well as backfill opportunities at Johnson City Crossings. We've assisted a large farm supply retailer to connect with property owners in the south side of the market. That particular retailer is looking to purchase existing property in the market. So we've worked to connect them with property owners, although we have not been successful in a deal yet, but we're hopeful. We're also hopeful that 2 grocery retailers will soon be opening in the market. One's a little bit further along than the other, which I'm sure you can guess which one that is. But we seem to think that another grocer has significant interest in a center on the south side of the market, and there may be paper exchanging hands right now as far as making a deal for that to happen. Now, we hear a lot of positives. Of course, we have to tell you about the negatives as well. And while you may hear a no, we more hear like a not right now. So just because we hear a no from a retailer doesn't mean that we won't be reaching out to them in the next 12 months. We just are giving them a little bit of time to see what Johnson City has to offer, see what sort of growth is in your trajectory right now. But that's also not a bad thing, because it helps us to narrow our focus and know which opportunities are the ones that we need to really be going after. In this case, we know that Hibbett Sports and Dunham's have declined the market due to oversaturation and just increased competition. We also know that Burke's is not interested in the market. They told us no. Whataburger, Huey Magoo's, Crave Hot Dogs and Barbecue, Blaze Pizza, and Baskin Robbins are also retailers that have said no to the market right now. Again, we will be following up with those retailers as we hear more. So a little bit about our plans for 2021. Of course, we plan to continue to schedule portfolio reviews of the Johnson City market with retailers, brokers, and developers in lieu of in-person meetings until our ICSC conferences resume. Also, we plan to have all your research updated and on-demand reporting available to reflect numbers. Of course, I'm sure you know that data is in arrears. So we'll have 2020 data probably at the beginning of next year. So all of your marketing material and research will be updated to reflect those new numbers. We also are going to continue our recruiting efforts to prospective retailers and restaurants that reflect the goals of city and county leadership. While our approach is data-driven, we pride ourselves on really being able to integrate that information with what you want us to be doing. So, we welcome your feedback. We want to hear your requests. We want to hear the information that gives us direction. Also, one thing that we really want to do in Johnson City, and this is why we love your market, is that we want to continue working with downtown property owners and brokers to encourage increased national retailer presence and growth in the historic core. We know that this is something that a lot of people in your community are passionate about. And while our specific platform doesn't always lend itself to downtown recruitment, simply because this tends to be dominated by local and regional users, we think that Johnson City has the right mix of consumers and available space to support some smaller national concepts at this time. So we're going to continue to reach out to those restaurants and retailers to tell them about all the different opportunities downtown, and we hope that can be something that we can grow as a service to you. And then lastly, we hope to monitor existing space and work with property owners to develop plans for any current vacancies, space coming available, or new developments and redevelopments in the works. We know that you have a number of places right now that are large vacancies. Some of those are being filled, some of them have not been, and so we continue to work to those to make sure that those are filled and successful in doing good business in the market. As our business has grown, we also want to let you know that our understanding of the integrated nature of development has also advanced along with us. So you hear all these adages: retail follows rooftop, housing follows good schools, industry follows the workforce. We're all familiar with those types of things that attempt to illustrate a linear pattern of growth within markets. The reality, though, is that we've learned that growth is really more circular. So we're gaining experience in a lot of these different sectors of real estate and development, and we encourage you and your team to reach out to us for needs other than retail recruitment. While that is and will remain so our primary focus, we want you to know that we're working in a lot of different realms right now within real estate, and we're we want to almost expand our scope to help you grow, regardless of whether that's retail, residential, industry, et cetera. For example, we are helping cities to advise cities on incentive offerings. We are working with residential developers to develop workforce housing. We are assisting other communities develop municipal buildings. We've also recently launched a new product offering, which Preston and Bob are aware of, called Downtown Strategies. The goal of that is to advise cities on how to create and foster and nurture walkable, vibrant, and business-friendly downtowns. So all of those things are discussions that are things that are open for discussion. Of course, just a continuation of what we're offering you here, but we want to grow with you. Lastly, we applaud your team on being wonderful partners. We feel like we've had a lot of success in Johnson City, and there's only more on the horizon. But we never forget that Johnson City is the local expert, and we are the retail expert. We are coming together in partnership to really tell your story in a way that resonates with retailers. We applaud you on being great partners, and look forward to our future. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. That was very informative, and obviously this is an unusual year. We think we're a good market, and we think, we are beginning to see some mobility of, particularly on the residential and maybe small business folks moving into our area, because it's a pretty good environment now compared to a lot of the big cities. So that's a positive for us. I might add, and I appreciate your remarks about our values and things that are important to us here. And Preston, I was looking on our website. For some reason, I don't see it on here, but we've just finished our strategic plan. And if you could get a copy of that sent to John and to Retail Strategies, it might be worthwhile for them to take a look at that. And we are, it's a high level thing. It's kind of a good marketing piece. And the staff is now working out and fine tuning the deliverables on that plan. So maybe that'll be helpful to you as well. Commissioners, any questions for Retail Strategies?
Mayor, this is John.
Yes, John.
So I got cut out a minute ago and finally got my Wi-Fi back up. But and so you may have talked about this, and so if so, I apologize. But my question has to do with the fact that earlier today I dropped one of my kids off at school, and I was behind somebody with Texas license plates. Went to the gas station, there was Pennsylvania and North Carolina, was in the pharmacy drive-through, and I was behind somebody from, I think, Georgia. And I think one of the things we've all noticed here is, due to COVID, the number of people, not just from, one particular state or the other, but just there's been an influx of people coming here from out of state to move, to visit. And y'all kind of touched on it, but at the same time with that, how are y'all, or are you specifically using that? I remember, I think it was last year when you came, you talked about being able to use the cell phone tracking or whatever it is, the appropriate word is, to see, the movement of people, within a 100-mile radius to come to the mall and whatnot. But people are moving out of the big metro areas to places like Johnson City that have good offering, but also provide that small town or more rural aspect that people are looking for currently. Are y'all using that as part of your recruiting tools, and then how are retailers looking at that as far as where they're moving and relocating and opening up more locations?
Well, so to your point, we rely heavily on our mobile tracking data. We've actually just in this past 6 or 8 months, we've beefed up we've changed our system a little bit. We were using a program called Uber Retail. We're now using Mobile Insights, which actually allows for a little bit more granular data that goes even as far as how many times a particular customer is visiting a retailer. But still, in a larger sense, we rely on mobile tracking data in order to illustrate the point that more than just the tax-paying citizens in Johnson City are actually shopping in Johnson City. So we rely more so on a custom trade area that we determine for Johnson City rather than what I call your Wikipedia population. Does that make sense? So we are grabbing all those people from outside your trade area who are coming there to shop or spend money or who are most likely to be in your market. And we're using those numbers to kind of advertise your market rather than what than a retailer might look up on the internet and see as far as your numbers along city boundaries or county boundaries.
Sure. Yeah, I'd just love to. Again, I don't know the technology, but I'd love to be able to, if there was a way for you all to communicate and show retailers this time or 12 months prior, this was the type of traffic Johnson City was seeing. It was people within 100, 150 miles. Today, post-COVID, they've seen all this traffic of people who had been in these other regions and now are coming here and either are spending more time here or live here now, whatever, to introduce that, base. And of course, I guess the census will be out at some point.
Right. Well, and to your point, that census will also, and our updated numbers for 2020 will also show a growth rate, which, if I remember correctly, was about 4.5% in 2019. So that growth rate, I hope to see an even higher growth rate. And again, that might be, other than population, a growth rate might be the most important piece of demographic data for a retailer because they want to grow in places that are growing. So I think that'll be really interesting. And retailers are aware of that phenomenon of people leaving larger metro areas for more affordable, more accessible areas like Johnson City. So they're aware of that. They're going to be watching that, and we will absolutely be putting our best foot forward to show that growth rate and how you've grown and what you're doing to improve.
Okay, good. Any other questions?
One last one.
Yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead. No problem.
So we talk a lot about recruitment, but are there any, the other commissioners probably are already guessing what the word I'm going to use, but are there any retaining models that you have? Because, it's a lot easier to keep than to bring in new. So, and that might not be part of what you all do, but is there a retention piece to what you all do with retail strategies?
There is something we used to really help cities out, back in the day. This was early on with retail strategies, but going as far as to encouraging your citizens to shop local and then also thanking the retailer for being there. So in smaller communities, it doesn't really work as well for Johnson City because there's, a lot of retail already there. But cities would actually write, handwritten letters and then sign them and send them to at least the corporation to thank them for their business and thank them for being in the market. And sometimes they would actually get responses back from the corporation saying, really appreciate being there. We look forward to, having another great year. That's always something that you can do, and always encouraging your constituents to shop local. That always helps.
Additionally, I think that's one thing that Preston has been doing a great job of. I guess maybe about, Preston, about 18 months ago or so, we sat down for our first meeting in your office. And we kind of talked about what our role is and how it could fit into what Preston's doing. And what we advise our clients to do is that, let us handle the recruitment, but the city is best at handling retention efforts. And so, when Preston and I meet at shows, at ICSC shows, like for example, in Nashville last summer, I said, Jordan and I are gonna walk our booths and we're gonna shake hands and talk to the people that we want to be in Johnson City. The best thing that Preston can do is go to the existing retailers in Johnson City and say, hey, I'm Preston Mitchell. I'm in City Hall. What can I do or have any problems? What can I do to help you make life easier? So he's really great at that. And that's kind of the way that we've found we can work best with our clients. Let us handle the recruitment. You focus on the retention.
Thank you.
Will, if I could, Mayor, add to that, it's fantastic to see the mall continuing to invest and grow, especially in such a tough time. And speaking of relationship building, that's an area where I and our department has focused on developing relationships with those folks at Washington Prime, the owner of the mall, but also here locally with Ashley Grindstaff and those folks. You know, for the mall to have moved forward with the demolition of the Sears Auto Center and the front of the Sears building, move forward with some of their interior tenants, and then also moving forward with the out parcel space there where Chipotle is going to be and Chicken Salad Chick. Those are two new retailers that we've never had in the market, or at least that I'm not aware of, that I know Retail Strategies played a hand in and are going to be coming into that new facility. He also mentioned the Publix to have pulled the trigger in 2020 and jump on their project. They had a number of delays, but to have pulled the trigger on their project and move forward is great, because they also have, a lot of folks don't realize that the Publix development not only is building a new grocery store, but also has a new ground up strip building to the left of it as you're facing it. So there will be new inline tenants there in addition to the Publix grocery store. So despite the flattening, and that was the term I used in an email to you all during the last quarter report that I gave the city manager, despite what I would argue as a flattening, as you know, that can be seen in the commercial markets and our commercial permits, we still have quite a lot of activity in Johnson City, and especially as I talk to my peers in other communities. And I'm glad John brought that up about markets that are tourism heavy, and especially markets with heavy on luxury goods. Our market continues to grow and thrive. You can also see that with our residential numbers. Our residential permits and new housing starts are unbelievable. And so really, really lucky and really, really blessed during this pandemic to see what we've seen, especially with the mall and some other areas like that.
Thank you, Preston. And thank you all so much for the very informative report. I did find the strategic plan. It's just on the home page. If you go to johnsonCity10.org, it's right there. It's kind of flashing through some stuff, but I think it could be a really good document for you to use. But,
absolutely. We really enjoyed looking at the Walnut Street. Oh, excuse me. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I guess last year Preston shared with us your Walnut Street corridor redevelopment plan. We really enjoyed that. That's a really progressive attitude to take towards, you know, bringing together your downtown and your university. So we were really excited about that and look forward to being a part of that once it all comes to fruition. But yeah, we'll definitely take a look at your strategic plan as well.
Very good. Thanks so much. And,
yeah, thank you, Mayor.
Thanks for joining. Sorry you had to wait so long.
That's okay. Have a good night, everybody.
Right,
Thanks,
Preston.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks.
Okay, Pete. What else? You're on mute.
I'm not used to muting. I'm usually in here by myself, and Commissioner Fowler and I are sitting here asking and answering questions, so I put myself on mute. So excuse me for being a little slow. Okay, is there anything else on the agenda? Bob, Charlie, Preston, anything that we were going to cover tonight that we haven't gone over yet?
Nothing that I've got. I just, I guess just so everyone's on the same page, based on the discussion with the CVB, I take it we'll add that to the agenda for Thursday night, but I had nothing else.
I think we're prepared unless any commissioner is not ready to add it to the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Calhoun had made inquiry about the natural adventure area. I spoke with Phil today. The weather this week is going to prevent any meaningful work getting done down there. There's a little bit of grading that we need to do. There's probably 20% of the playground equipment yet to be installed. We'll have to come back in once that's installed and place some stone, and then it's ready for the artificial turf. all in all, Phil said there's probably 2 weeks worth of work left. So we just need say a 7 to 10 day window of decent weather, and we should be able to close that project up. Excuse me. And bring that to fruition. So hopefully by the end of the month, that'll be a complete project, and we can have a grand opening and a celebration of getting that project opened up to the public. Certainly want to extend an update and a big thanks to all the contributors and supporters of that project. We realize it's taken much longer than anyone ever anticipated, but with COVID and first one thing, then another delay in getting playground equipment, I think we were probably 3 months late in getting the equipment as that came out of the state of Oregon. For a variety of reasons, it was late getting here. So look forward to getting that opened up and have a really good time with that.
Pete, let me just add a couple of comments on that. I've been riding by quite frequently, and it really is going to be an amazing playground. I mean, you just don't see this kind of playground in every city for sure. It's kind of a one of a kind that I've seen. I was down there the other day, and there were 3 little boys sitting on the wall and their dad was there. They'd been riding their bikes, and they were just sitting on the wall looking into the playground area. And so I just walked over there and I asked them, I said, "Hey guys, what do you think?" And when they turned and looked at me, and I told them who I was, and the grins on their face, you just needed a picture of it. And they went on and on and on about this playground, and they just couldn't wait to get on it. I don't know if it's possible. I mean, obviously our kids have gone through so much, and as we look at the trees in the park, and if there's any way, even if it's the week of Christmas, that we could get that opened up, it would be a great Christmas present to our kids, who have really sacrificed a lot this year. And I'd really like to request that, if it's a small virtual ribbon cutting, and of course we need the sesquicentennial folks there as well, is that we bring kids in to actually cut the ribbon. So if there's any way possible, I know weather's going to be a driving factor in that, but if we could have that as a giant Christmas present to our kids of Johnson City, I think it would go a long way.
Yes, we will. Phil and his group are working hard to try to get that up here in the next couple of weeks.
Right.
So we'll certainly do that. I guess one of the other questions was any discussion on contingency planning with potential surge in COVID infection rates. We still have our plans, and I'm just talking about internal operations right now. Our plans from this past spring, leadership team has reviewed those, and to ensure that should we have a need to make changes, that the plans we had in place worked and that they're ready to be implemented again. With the exception of one department who had about 20 cases all at the same time, we really haven't been hit too awfully hard with actual infection. What we're really getting hit with is quarantine. And I think that seems to be the general consensus with every employer I've spoken with. You've got a family member or you've been exposed to somebody and you have to go into quarantine. So we still have a plan in place that we can go in those areas that we need to. We can go to shift work like we did back in the spring. Some folks would come in early in the day, others would come in later in the day. We will have, we've identified those folks that can and have proven that they're effective at working from home in those cases. We've got people identified where there's really not any redundancy in their job function other than maybe one other person. And we've taken steps to keep those people apart from one another during the course of the pandemic, and will continue to do so. As we've talked before, the area that causes me the greatest amount of awareness or concern are the water and sewer plants. Those, it's like breathing oxygen. You've just got to have those. There is nothing else but fully functional. So Tom is very keenly aware of that and has taken a number of precautionary steps. And we get reminders out to the employees about distancing and all the proper things to do, encouraging people to get flu shots. We've revisited how, if we need to, how we can modify our operations here in City Hall and further limit the number of people who are coming into the building to do business with us. We've still got employees that are going around visiting businesses as a friendly checkup and a friendly reminder to please be observant of every precaution that can be taken in order to keep people safe. So, I think, most of the health experts are predicting a significant rise in the number of new cases and hospitalizations, probably in this coming weekend or next week, more so than this week, just because of the timing of incubation and as in relation to the Thanksgiving holidays. I did note, I think on one of the news outlets today online, that today Northeast Tennessee reported, I think, 700 and some new cases and 10 deaths. When I looked at the state numbers, the 10 deaths are 25% of all the deaths reported in the state of Tennessee today. And the 750 new cases, I think, was about 10 or 12% of all the new cases reported across the state today. So it's here, it's impacting a great number of people. We just need to be diligent. We need to be mindful of what we're doing, who we're around. We've the healthcare professionals, health departments are saying that the biggest opportunities for spread are bars, restaurants, and gyms. So if I don't know that at what point, if we ever get to the point that we look to altered schedules for places or businesses like that are proven to be areas of high contact and high transmission. But I've had Sonny do some research, and should it be the will of the commission or we get to that point, we do have the ability to enact some curfews and to adjust the hours of operations of businesses that sell alcohol if that becomes something that we do want to look at doing.
Pete, let me add some new data to what you were talking about. Well, first of all, I really think we need to have some contingency plans in place so that we can move to that fairly quickly if need be. While we've been on this Zoom call, I received a text from Eric Deaton. They're trending, he said me to say it like this, they are trending so that there's going to be an excess of over 300 in the hospital tomorrow. So, that's putting them with a lot of huge percentage of beds taken out by COVID patients. And that's just going to keep increasing. And then we've got what's going to happen after Thanksgiving. So one of the things, commissioners, I wanted to talk to y'all about, we kind of have acquiesced the communication of this to Ballard and to the county mayors, and we haven't been speaking very much from the city. That's apparent to some of our citizens, and I probably have at least 2 calls a day from people who are so upset because businesses aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, or they see groups of people together and they're very concerned. So I wanted to suggest, one of the big things that's not, we've talked about masks, we've talked about washing hands and socially distancing, but not really focusing in a way that gets people's attention about individual responsibility. I had a call a couple of weeks ago from somebody who said, what's the city going to do to help reduce the transmission of COVID? And so, I kind of thought for a minute and I said, but I mean, you and I are the only ones who can do that. We either put ourselves in a position to spread it, or we put ourselves in a position to get it. And so we've never really talked about the individual responsibility to the point of where people they're either going to accept that or not, and what the business's individual responsibility is. Beef O'Brady's, Pete, if you can tell Will or Jeremiah to go back out there. I mean, it's got a call on them today. Supposedly 6 cases of employees, and they've asked them to be quiet and don't say anything about it. So anyway, I want to suggest that perhaps we as a commission do a video. The mayors of Sullivan County have done one that I thought was really good. They did a nice job on it, but I think it's time for our commission to do something. And so I don't know what you think about it, but I just don't think we can sit quietly and expect everybody we're going into Christmas, and that's just going to compound everything. So if we can get a script and a small part for each one of us to do in this video, are y'all willing to do that? No? Yes? What are your thoughts? John, you unmuted, so you can speak up.
Well, I think, if we did something like that, it'd be even probably more beneficial if we had not just us or representation from us, but other leaders within the community, centers of influence, that aren't elected necessarily to be a part of that. It would be just off the top of my mind as to how to do something like that, because obviously there are people that are interested in look at city leadership, but then, there are other significant people within the community that, may be able to help people understand that this is across all ages, all political boundaries. This is about caring for our citizens.
Yeah, that's kind of what Ballard's been doing. If you look at their full page ads, they've got Scott Carter, with a mask on. They've got different people that are in different positions in the community. We were hoping that we would see kids actually, making some statements about it. But what I'm suggesting is something that we can, we can branch out into that. But I think we need to be visible. And we have, when you look at the representation on this commission, we have a physician, a pharmacist, a business person, 2 business people, and a grandma. But I think we could deliver a powerful message. But if you don't think so, then I can understand that.
I would be okay with doing it. I don't have a problem with doing it. Be nice to get some younger people. I mean, John's young. I have to give him that, but
that's all he's got, though, is young.
Oh.
Well, and Todd, you have a powerful message, and again, it would all be kind of scripted so that it really says the things that we think need to be said. And Larry, for you, and we've got the vaccine coming out. And we've already had the governor say, the most important thing about the vaccine is that it's an individual choice. So we're already going to be working against that.
First, I'll commit for that Aaron will participate in the video. So,
I'll second that.
all right, sounds good. So write him a big script.
Well, let's see what we can pull together here in terms of the messaging and
I guess my only response is to step back and ask what the objective in sending the message is. I think in the suggestion is a notion that people just don't understand. And honestly, I think people understand plenty enough. I just don't think they give a damn, because you see, it doesn't apply to them. They're young and they're healthy. This only happens to old and sick people. They have it coming to them because they're old and sick. And I've had conversations this week with people who are taking a totally dismissive attitude toward this. And it's only because they can't yet imagine it affecting them in a way that has consequence. And I don't know that 5 more politicians saying masks matter, wash your hands, and stay apart from each other is going to all of a sudden divert that predisposition. What's going to divert that predisposition is grandma dying in a week because they had Thanksgiving at her house.
Well,
And that, and so I don't know. I almost feel like on one level, I agree. When I saw the bit from the governor about vaccine being an individual choice, I was thinking something like, maybe we should just let people drive drunk. They should be allowed to decide what their level of too drunk is. That's a liberty they should have, except that they put everybody else in danger when they do that. And so when you talk about the vaccine, I almost wonder if our part to help bend, to help move us in the direction of a resolution is to emphasize based on different reports, the vaccine could be coming very soon. The vaccine could be coming sort of soon. Maybe that's the message that we really ought to be preparing for. I just know friends of mine who are not that much older than I am. She died of COVID this week, and he's in ICU. And so I don't know how to get that through to people. I don't think me saying what all these other experts have already said, that's my only reservation. Is it just more noise?
Well, to what you're saying, the purpose, it's not, everybody knows about the mask and all that kind of stuff, but it is about our own individual responsibilities in the height of something that is, what the peak number will be here in Johnson City. And that's what we need to think about. And the damage that is occurring as a result of it. I just don't see where us not trying to engage our citizens to rally around this. We have been a hardy group of people, the entire history of this city. And it's really to try to bring the community together in a way that they're willing to make the sacrifice that's needed until the vaccine is here. And then for us to get behind, encouraging people to have the vaccination. So, that's kind of where I'm coming from. Plus, we're pretty much just sitting silent. And
well, I don't know if I accept that we're sitting silent. We've got mask banners on every sign coming into town. We've talked at great length. I think we've announced some of the, to suggest that the city hasn't done anything, off the top of my head, I can't think of all the things we've done over the last 8 months or however long, but that would just be factually inaccurate to suggest we haven't done anything or that we've sat silent. The governor didn't.
Joe.
What's that?
I said I'm not suggesting that.
Oh, no, I know, but I'm saying, but they're implicit in the suggestion, though, has been feedback from citizens to you who appear to be suggesting that. And what I would want to say is we have done things. The governor gave that authority to county mayors. He did not give that authority to us. Now, we've not made it a secret that we've been supportive of the county mayor. I mean, if we need to make a more pointed statement on that front, please understand, I am not opposed to this. I just don't know what it adds to the conversation, because the people that I'll tell you what will have more effect. Those citizens who are calling you about businesses that aren't wearing masks. I've called 2 business owners I know and told them about walking up to the door of their establishment, surveying the room through the glass and realizing half the people didn't have masks on, and I left. And I told the business owner that. And, maybe that changes behavior that my transaction left. Maybe it doesn't, but that's going to have a lot more effect than just, I don't know, that I've said my piece.
Yeah. Well, I think for all of us sitting here, the worst is still in front of us. And so we haven't done a lot, and I wasn't suggesting we haven't. But, there are a lot of people who look to their leadership during times of great stress and the unknown. And, we just have to decide if we want to kind of pick up the gauntlet somewhat more and try to at least influence our citizens to do a better job of what some are doing a good job of, but there are many, many who aren't. And so it's a choice we have. We do that, or, let Ballard take the lead on the communication on it. And, I do see Sullivan County doing more than what we're doing over here in Washington County. So that's just my suggestion. Yes, and I do get emails from people who are saying, where are you? We don't hear from you. And there's been confusion because the county mayor has done the mask mandate, so people don't think it applies to Johnson City. But with everyone, we set them straight on that. But anyway, okay, we'll y'all think about it, and if we want to do anything. But I do believe, Pete, we still need to work more aggressively on some contingency plans if this thing just continues to get worse. I'm sure we'll all be seeing the numbers at Ballard exponentially going up. There's no way it can't. And this Thanksgiving travel and being together is 2 weeks away from being a mess around here.
Do we know, I'm sorry, Mayor, can I interrupt? With respect to the, it's a 14-day period where the person could be contagious, but I've read some stuff lately that suggests that the worst of that 14 days is sooner. Are there people out there on this subject smarter than I who kind of would look at Thanksgiving and say, if Thanksgiving's going to have the effect we all fear it could have had, is it 5 days away? Is it 12 days away? Does anybody know?
Based on conversations I've had with the health department, incubation period is 4 or 5 days, thereabouts. So I would think that the answer to your question would be next weekend. 7, 8, 9 days after Thanksgiving if they were infected on Thanksgiving Day. So, 4 or 5 day incubation period and then a day or two to get feeling bad.
And then to get tested. So then you got to get tested. So, and the turnaround time on the tests have really gotten longer.
I understand today that the line for testing at the health department was all the way through the parking lot and through the old Tennessee Motors and out in Princeton Road. There were a lot of people getting tested today.
My grandchildren had to be tested again, and it took 10 days to get their test results back.
One other thing, I was on
9 days.
I was on a call earlier today. The vaccine is going to be phased in. There's actually, I think, 5 or 6 different phases. And yeah, the vaccine looks like it's going to become available in the month of December, but that's going to be limited to people over 65 with multiple comorbidities, people that work in the hospital, and first responders. Based on the plan that I have seen, there are people in the general public, which some of us qualify and some of us will get shots earlier probably. We probably won't see a shot until April or May. We're going to have to learn to live with this thing for another 6 months or so. There's not this magic vaccine that's going to come out in January and everybody's going to get it and everything's going to be different in February. There's 330 million people in this country, and everybody, if you take the Pfizer course of medicine, it's 2 shots. So usually I think the number is about half the people in this country choose to take a flu shot. So if everybody gets 2 shots, that's still 330 million inoculations that's got to occur. It's going to take some time to do that. And with the Pfizer drug, you got to have that second shot's got to happen within 21 days. So you're going to get so many people done, and then starting day 21, you're going to redo those people again because they need the second shot. This is going to be a lengthy process, and we need to be prepared to be diligent and to be proactive. I would suggest to you until early part of next summer before you really get a chance for everybody to get inoculated. And I'm sitting here talking about the United States of America. The folks in the drug companies are talking about a vaccine for everybody on planet Earth. So, that just gives you some idea of the numbers that you're talking about. It's staggering. So I wish I had something happier to say to you right now, but the reality of it is it's here, it's real, and people need to get serious about it.
Okay, is there anything else anybody has to throw on the table? All right, if not, we will dial in Thursday night. Yeah.
I think Larry had on his email about the police or whatever.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Sorry.
The tattoo policy.
Oh, okay.
The police
Sorry.
department is right now in the process of surveying their employees of the department to get a better understanding of what their feelings and opinions are on the policy as amended versus a policy that would allow tattoos to not be covered. And hopefully we'll have all that information back the end of the week, the next week. And we want to be sure. I feel like it was really important that we give the employees that are already here an opportunity to express their opinions. And I'm also glad to share with you, we just finished up an assessment panel last week and extended employment opportunities to 8 new police officers. So we had a very good recruiting class this time. And that fills 8 out of the 14 vacancies right now.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Joe was probably referring to Cindy. Larry, do y'all have any details about her, what kind of services they're going to have or how Phil is?
No, I don't. And Caring Bridge site just said Phil's holding his own.
Okay. All right. There's nothing else. Sign off.